Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. There are some points that I would like to clarify. Obviously, we're for this. The one thing that has surprised me about this this debate is everyone standing up saying what a wonderful place Wellington is. Well, coming from Napier, I suppose everything's relative, isn't it? Oh. You know, Mr. O'Rourke brought up a very good point, and I was going to allude to this, so I won't go through it in the level of detail I originally planned to. But it is quite interesting that the principles all talk about should, whereas most of the other things in the bill are a requirement. And I'm not too sure if that's deliberate or why it is, or some of these things might be more difficult to deliver on than others, and therefore they're not prescribed in case they create a burden for the Wellington City Council. The other thing in here that I would be quite interested to know is if in fact this does create a burden for ratepayers, i.e. by creating this sort of deed, this trust, does it mean that the council is going to have to put aside another $3 or $5 or $4 or $10 million of ratepayers' money to be able to actually be able to carry out the statutory requirements that are now legislatively forced upon it? But there are a couple of things that, a couple of questions, serious questions that I do have. I'm assuming, though, on a less serious nature, that in the principles for Part B3, the Wellington Town Belt should support healthy Indigenous ecosystems. Is that the Gareth Morgan clause? Or, but on a serious note, though, B Part 6, what it says here is, and I'll quote, the community participation in the management of the Wellington Town Belt should be encouraged and supported. But then I note when you go to Clause 10, the management plan, it is very prescriptive in the sense that the City Council must seek public input for the development of the management plan. So it seems as if one is saying the public should be involved in this, whereas Clause 10 said the Council must liaise with with Wellington inhabitants. It just seems there's a little bit of a dichotomy. It's not a big one. I think we know what it means. But there is a serious question here, and I don't have the answer to it, and maybe the member does. I'm looking at the legal status of this, and we're Clause 8 here. It says, quote, the Council holds the Wellington Town Belt on behalf of the inhabitants of the City of Wellington as a trustee of the trust created by the Town Belt deed. Now, the thing I don't quite get here is that there is something called the rule against perpetuities, and that is every trust must have a definitive life, and that is basically a life in being plus 21 years. And there is a legal definition of this, and I think it is, I think it's 80 years. Thank you, Mrs. Collins. It's 80 years. So this, but I'm unsure if that same rule applies to a charitable trust. But there is nothing in here that suggests that this is a charitable trust. So all I can ascertain from this bill is that this is a trust, not a charitable trust. Therefore, it has a life of about 80 years. And to those of us who are sitting in this House, I'm like, but Mr. O'Rourke, it doesn't outline the fact in here that this is a charitable trust. So by law, it has a life of 80 years. Now, the member may correct me if I am wrong, and for those of us who are sitting here, 80 years sounds like a long time, but there are a number of instances throughout history where 80 years has flown by, and it leaves those who come after us with a whole lot of things to fix. The other thing also that, that's you always pick up these sort of terms. It says the council may, without complying to subsection 4, this is clause 10, the management plan, subsection 4 says you must consult with ratepayers and constituents. It says without applying subsection 4, amend the management plan if it passes a resolution that, and I quote, the proposed amendments are minor or technical in nature. Now, Meka Whaitiri and I are struggling with an issue in Hawke's Bay at the moment where the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, a number of councillors were sort of ambushed, and I use that word probably a bit too liberally actually, when they went into a meeting and said, we are going to pass a resolution because it's not minor, it's technical, it doesn't require any sort of public consultation, and that is we are going to allow the council to enter into a contract, a binding contract worth $35 million.
Order.
$35 million. No, but okay, so what I am keen to know here is what actually constitutes minor and technical.
Call